The massive alien fleet hung in space like a dark cloud of death. 2,000 warships stretched across the void, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. The ships belonged to the Vorthak Empire, and they had come to destroy Earth. Admiral Crixtel stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the small blue planet on his screens. His forearms crossed over his armored chest as he smiled with sharp teeth. Behind him, his officers laughed at the pathetic human defenses they could see through their advanced scanners. The Vorthak had conquered 47 different worlds. They had never lost a single battle. Every species they met either joined their empire or died fighting. The humans would be no different from all the others who had fallen before their mighty fleet. On the human destroyer, Seoul's Pride commander, Hyunwoo Park stared at the enemy ships filling his sensor displays. His crew of 30 men and women looked scared as they counted the massive alien vessels. The odds were impossible. Humanity had only 12 ships defending their outer colonies against this enormous armada. Park had served in the Human Defense Force for 15 years. He had fought pirates and rebels in the outer systems, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The alien ships were so large that his entire vessel could fit inside one of their weapon bays. His hands shook slightly as he gripped his command. The communication officer turned to Park with wide eyes. The aliens were sending a message to all human colonies. Park nodded and the message appeared on the main screen. Admiral Crixtel's ugly face filled the display as he began to speak in perfect human language. "We are the Vorthak Empire rulers of 300 star systems," the alien commander announced. "Your pathetic species has exactly 72 hours to surrender completely. We will allow your people to live as our slaves if you submit now. If you refuse, we will demonstrate why every civilization fears our power." The alien admiral continued his speech with growing arrogance. He called humans primitive apes who barely deserved the mercy of quick death. He promised that resistance was useless and that the mighty Vorthak fleet would crush any opposition like insects under their boots. Captain So-Young Kim watched the same message from her research station orbiting Jupiter. Her team of scientists had been studying alien technology for 3 years, preparing for this day. She had always known the aliens would eventually find Earth, but she had hoped humanity would have more time. The research station was not a military vessel. It had no weapons and no shields. But Kim had been secretly working on projects that the government did not know about. She had discovered things that might help humanity survive this impossible situation. On Earth, President Jin-Ho Lee called an emergency meeting of the Global Defense Council. Military leaders from every nation gathered in the underground bunker beneath Seoul. The massive conference room filled with worried voices as generals and admirals discussed their hopeless situation. General Mina Choi presented the grim numbers to the assembled leaders. Humanity had exactly 47 combat vessels scattered across 8 different star systems. Most of these ships were small destroyers and frigates built for patrol duty, not major battles. The enemy had brought enough firepower to destroy entire planets. The alien ultimatum had been broadcast to every human world. Panic spread through the colonies as people tried to evacuate to safer systems. But there were no safe places when facing an enemy this powerful. The Vorthak controlled faster than light travel and could strike anywhere in human space. Dr. Dong Hyun-yang sat in his secret laboratory deep beneath the Busan Institute of Technology. For 3 years he had been working on something that the military leaders did not know about, something that the politicians had refused to fund because they thought it was impossible. Yang had made a discovery that could change everything. While studying quantum mechanics, he had found a way to manipulate the basic forces that held the universe together. His small team of scientists had been building weapons that existed only in theory books until now. The government had rejected his proposals, calling them science fiction. They wanted conventional weapons like bigger missiles and stronger armor. They could not understand that humanity needed something completely new to survive against advanced alien technology. Lieutenant Hai-Jin Cho monitored the deep space sensors from his post on Mars Station Alpha. He was young and inexperienced, but he had the best equipment in the solar system. His job was to watch for incoming threats and warn Earth about any dangers. Cho had been tracking the alien fleet for weeks as it approached human space. He had sent detailed reports about their numbers and capabilities to his superiors. But now, He was seeing something strange that made no sense according to everything he knew about space travel. The massive alien armada had suddenly stopped moving. Their energy signatures were changing in ways that his computers could not explain. The ship seemed to be preparing for something, but Cho could not figure out what they were doing. When he reported these strange readings to Major Kyung-Soo Nam, his commanding officer told him to focus on evacuation procedures instead. The major was too busy organizing the defense of Mars to worry about minor sensor anomalies. But Cho kept watching the displays. His instincts told him that something important was happening. The aliens were confident and arrogant, but they were also being very careful. They were taking their time and positioning their ships in precise formations. Back on the Vorthak flagship, Admiral Krikstal studied the intelligence reports about human military capabilities. His staff had analyzed every human vessel and weapon system. The results were laughably pathetic compared to Vorthak technology. The humans had no energy shields worth mentioning. Their weapons were primitive chemical rockets and basic laser systems. Their ships were made of simple metal alloys that Vorthak plasma cannons could melt like butter. This would be the easiest conquest in the Empire's long history. The alien commander felt almost disappointed by how weak the humans appeared to be. Where was the challenge that made conquest satisfying? These creatures seemed barely more advanced than the Stone Age primitives his people had conquered on other worlds. But the Vorthak had strict procedures for planetary conquest. Even against pathetic enemies, they followed the same careful plans that had brought them victory across the galaxy. They would take their time and do this properly like they always did. The 72-hour deadline began counting down as the alien ultimatum reached every human world. Across 8 star systems, people prepared for either surrender or death. Most believed that resistance against such overwhelming power was completely hopeless. Only a few humans knew that their species had been preparing a surprise that would shock the entire galaxy. 3 years before the alien invasion, Dr. Dong Hyun-yang had made the discovery that would save humanity. He was working late in his laboratory at the Busan Institute of Technology when he found something that changed everything he thought he knew about physics. Yang had been studying quantum mechanics for 20 years. He understood how the smallest particles in the universe behaved and danced according to strange rules that most people could never comprehend. But on that night, he discovered that these tiny particles could be controlled in ways no one had ever imagined. The breakthrough came when Yang was trying to solve the problem of faster-than-light communication. He was manipulating quantum fields in his experimental chamber, when suddenly space itself began to ripple like water. The effect lasted only seconds, but Yang realized he had found something incredible. Dr. Yujin Han was the first person Yang called about his discovery. She was a brilliant physicist who specialized in theoretical quantum engineering. When Yang showed her the experimental data, she immediately understood what they had found. They had learned how to weaponize the basic structure of reality itself. The two scientists worked in secret for months, developing their theory into practical applications. They discovered that quantum fields could be manipulated to affect matter and energy on a massive scale. Space itself could be turned into a weapon more powerful than any bomb or laser cannon. But when Yang presented his findings to the military leaders, they laughed at him. General Mina Choi called his ideas science fiction nonsense. The politicians refused to fund research into what they considered impossible theories that would waste money needed for conventional weapons. Yang refused to give up on his discovery. He knew that humanity would eventually face threats from advanced alien civilizations. When that day came, they would need weapons that could compete with technology far beyond human understanding. Conventional military thinking would not be enough. He gathered a small team of brilliant scientists who shared his vision. They worked in hidden laboratories using private funding and resources they acquired through careful planning. The government did not know about their project, and Yang intended to keep it that way until the weapons were ready. Captain Hyun-Woo Park received strange new orders that confused him and his crew. Instead of retreating toward Earth's defensive perimeter, his destroyer Soul's Pride was ordered to advance toward the approaching alien fleet. The coordinates he was given seemed to point to empty space with no strategic value. Admiral Tae Young-shin explained the mission through a coded transmission that only Park could decode. The human fleet was not planning to fight a conventional space battle against the overwhelming alien armada. They were going to demonstrate something that had never been attempted in the history of galactic warfare. Park did not understand the technical details, but he trusted the scientists who had developed this mysterious plan. His ship and 11 others were positioned at specific coordinates throughout the solar system. Each vessel carried special equipment that had been installed in secret over the past few months. On the dark side of Earth's moon, thousands of human workers labored in hidden construction facilities. The public thought these were simple mining operations designed to extract valuable minerals. But engineer Bo-Ram Lee knew the truth about what they were really building beneath the lunar surface. The underground factories stretched for kilometers in every direction. Massive machines assembled components that existed only in theoretical physics textbooks until Dr. Young's team made them reality. The quantum field generators were the size of office buildings and required enormous amounts of power to operate. Lee had been supervising the construction for 2 years. She had recruited the best engineers from around the world to work on this secret project. Every person involved understood that they were building humanity's last hope against advanced alien threats. The workers lived in sealed underground cities to prevent any information from leaking to the surface. They could not contact their families or leave the lunar facilities until the project was complete. The sacrifice was enormous, but everyone understood the importance of their mission. Dr. Sun-hee Park oversaw similar construction projects on Earth itself. What appeared to be normal cities contained underground networks that connected every major population center on the planet. The tunnel systems housed quantum field generators disguised as power stations and research facilities. The Earth-based installations served 2 purposes. They would protect the planet's population from orbital bombardment by creating defensive shields around major cities. But protection was not their primary function. These devices were designed to turn the entire planet into the ultimate weapon. Park had spent months calculating the precise positions needed for the quantum field network. Every generator had to be placed at exactly the right coordinates to create the overlapping energy patterns that would trap the alien fleet. A single mistake in positioning could cause the entire system to fail. The most challenging part was keeping the construction secret from the alien scouts that had been watching Earth for years. The Vorthak had spies and monitoring stations throughout human space. They had to believe that humanity was helpless and unprepared for invasion. Captain So-Young Kim worked with her research team to develop the final pieces of Yang's quantum weapons. Her station orbiting Jupiter had been secretly modified to house the most powerful field generator ever built. The device could manipulate space across an area larger than the entire solar system. Kim's team had been testing smaller versions of the quantum manipulation technology for months. They had learned how to create pockets of altered spacetime that could trap objects or redirect energy. But they had never attempted anything on the scale that would be needed to stop the alien invasion. The Jupiter research station appeared to be conducting normal scientific experiments. But hidden beneath, the civilian laboratories was a military installation that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The quantum field projector was powerful enough to affect the movement of planets if necessary. Lieutenant He-Jin Cho continued to monitor the strange energy readings from the approaching alien fleet. He did not understand what his sensors were detecting, but he knew something unusual was happening in the space around the enemy ships. The readings suggested that reality itself was being prepared for some kind of massive change. Major Nam finally paid attention to Cho's reports when the energy signatures reached levels that could not be ignored. The Major contacted Earth Command to ask about the unusual readings. The response he received was classified at the highest levels, and he was ordered to continue normal operations. Dr. Yang made final adjustments to the quantum field generators hidden throughout the solar system. His daughter, Dr. Yoon-ji Yang, coordinated, with similar installations around Alpha Centauri and Proxima stations. The network was complete and ready to activate at a moment's notice. The alien deadline was approaching, but Yang felt confident for the first time in years. Humanity had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. They had built weapons that could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. Soon, the galaxy would discover what human ingenuity could accomplish when survival was at stake. Secret project involved over 50,000 people working in hidden facilities across human space. Every person involved understood that they were part of something that would change history forever. They had built humanity's answer to impossible odds. News of humanity's impending destruction spread across the galaxy faster than the speed of light. Every civilized world knew about the Vorthak invasion of the Sol system. Most alien species watched with casual interest as another primitive race, prepared to join the Empire or face extinction. On the trading planet, mercantis alien merchants gathered in their favorite gambling establishments to place bets on the coming battle. The odds were simple and everyone agreed on the outcome. The only question was how long the humans would last once the fighting began. Trader Vexa Malik, a reptilian creature from the Saurian collective, laughed as he placed his bet. He gave humanity exactly 4 hours from the first shot to complete surrender. His friends thought he was being generous. Most bets ranged from 30 minutes to 2 hours for total human defeat. The gambling halls filled with aliens from dozens of different species. Green-skinned Verdanians with their multiple arms argued, with insect-like chitinoids about human military capabilities. Gaseous beings from the nebula worlds floated in special chambers, while they discussed the finer points of planetary conquest. Everyone had studied the intelligence reports about human technology. Their weapons were primitive. Their ships were slow and poorly armored. They had no energy shields worth mentioning, and their tactics were predictable. The humans would die bravely, but they would definitely die. Ambassador Jaewon Kim stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral world of Harmony Station. He represented Earth in what everyone knew would be humanity's final diplomatic appearance. The massive council chamber held representatives from over 200 different civilizations. Kim looked up at the circular rows of alien delegates surrounding him. Some species breathed oxygen like humans, but many required special atmospheric suits or environmental chambers. The diversity was incredible, but they all shared one thing in common. They believed humanity was doomed. The Galactic Council had gathered for an emergency session to discuss the Vorthak invasion. This was mostly a formality since the Council had no power to stop the Empire from conquering primitive worlds. But diplomatic protocol required them to listen to Kim's final plea for help. Council Speaker Zorthani was an ancient being whose crystalline body pulsed with different colors as he spoke. His species had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations for millions of years. He had seen this same scene play out countless times as young races faced the inevitable conquest by more advanced empires. Kim began his speech knowing it was hopeless but determined to make humanity's final statement to the galaxy. He spoke about human courage and ingenuity. He described the peaceful nature of Earth's civilization and their desire for friendship with alien species. His words echoed in the vast chamber but fell on deaf ears. The council members listened with polite disinterest. They had heard similar speeches from dozens of species over the centuries. The Vorthak had never lost a war, and they were not about to start now. Humanity would become another footnote in the Empire's long history of conquest. Captain So-Young Kim evacuated the last civilian transport from Jupiter Station. Her orders were to fall back to Earth's final defense line. But she noticed something odd in the sensor data. Space itself seemed to be rippling around certain coordinates that her instruments could not properly identify. The evacuation ships were packed with families fleeing the outer colonies. Men, women, and children who had built new lives among the moons of Jupiter now faced an uncertain future. Many wept as they watched their homes disappear behind them while the alien fleet approached. Kim tried to maintain communication silence as ordered, but the strange sensor readings troubled her. The ripples in space appeared to follow geometric patterns that suggested artificial origin. She wondered if the aliens were using some kind of advanced technology to prepare for their attack. Deep in the Andromeda sector, the ancient Watcher species observed the developing situation through their cosmic telescopes. These beings had existed for millions of years and had seen every major event in galactic history. They rarely interfered in the affairs of younger species, but they always watched. Elder Korvash focused his 1,000-year-old mind on the Sol system, where unusual quantum fluctuations danced around the human star. His instruments detected energy patterns that seemed familiar, yet impossible. No species so young should be capable of manipulating quantum fields on this scale. The Watchers had developed quantum technology millions of years ago, but they had abandoned it as too dangerous for practical use. The forces involved could tear apart entire solar systems if not controlled properly. Surely the primitive humans had not discovered these ancient secrets. Korvash discussed the readings with other elders, but they agreed the fluctuations must be natural phenomena. Perhaps the approaching battle was causing stress fractures in the local space-time continuum. The humans were too primitive to intentionally manipulate quantum mechanics. Young Vorthak warrior Veltar checked his weapons aboard the invasion transport, Deathbringer. He had participated in 7 planetary conquests and looked forward to adding human trophies to his collection. His unit was assigned to capture Earth's major cities after the orbital bombardment reduced them to ruins. The transport ship carried 10,000 Vorthak soldiers equipped with the finest armor and weapons the Empire could provide. Each warrior was genetically enhanced for combat and trained from birth to conquer other species. They had never faced an enemy they could not defeat. Veltar studied intelligence reports about human military capabilities while he cleaned his plasma rifle. The humans used chemical propellant weapons that fired metal projectiles. Their body armor was made from simple ceramic plates that could not stop Vorthak energy weapons. This would be easy work against such primitive beings. His commander, General Thruk Val, had conquered 12 worlds during his long career. He explained to the troops that humans were physically weak and mentally inferior. They relied on large numbers rather than individual skill. A single Vorthak warrior was worth 10 human soldiers in direct combat. The invasion plan was simple, and had worked on dozens of other worlds. The fleet would destroy all human military installations from orbit. Then the ground forces would land, and capture the remaining population centers. Any humans who resisted would be killed as examples to the others. Dr. Yang made final adjustments to the quantum field generators hidden throughout the solar system. His control room deep beneath Sol contained monitors showing the status of installations from Mercury to Pluto. Every system showed green lights, indicating readiness for activation. His daughter, Dr. Yunji Yang, coordinated with similar installations around Alpha Centauri and Proxima stations. The quantum field network extended across multiple star systems connected by instantaneous quantum communication links. The scope of the project was beyond anything humanity had ever attempted. Yang felt the weight of his species' survival resting on his shoulders. 3 years of secret work had led to this moment when everything would be decided. Either his quantum weapons would save humanity, or they would all die, knowing they had tried the impossible. The alien deadline was only hours away. Across human space, millions of people watched the news broadcasts and prepared for either slavery or death. They did not know that their greatest scientists had spent years preparing a surprise that would shock civilizations across the galaxy. In the hidden facilities on Luna and Earth, the quantum field generators hummed with barely contained power. The devices that could manipulate the basic forces of reality waited for the signal that would change everything. Soon the galaxy would learn that humanity refused to surrender without a fight that no one would ever forget. The 72-hour deadline expired with Earth's defiant silence echoing across the galaxy. President Jin-Ho Lee had refused to surrender his species to alien slavery. The decision meant war against impossible odds, but humanity had chosen to fight rather than submit to the Vorthak Empire. Admiral Krixtal received confirmation that the humans had rejected his generous offer of peaceful conquest. The alien commander felt satisfied that he could now demonstrate Vorthak power to the watching galaxy. His massive fleet began moving toward the inner solar system in standard invasion formation. 2,000 alien warships advanced like a wall of death through the void between the planets. Each vessel was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons could melt continents and their shields could deflect the most powerful attacks. The fleet represented the accumulated military might of 300 conquered worlds. Captain Hyunwoo Park watched the enemy armada approach through his ship's sensors. His small destroyer Sol's Pride held position at coordinates that seemed to have no strategic value. Around him, the rest of the human fleet waited in similar positions, scattered throughout the solar system. Park's crew had been asking questions about their strange orders for hours. Why were they not forming a defensive line around Earth? Why were they positioned in seemingly random locations in empty space? The captain could not answer because he did not understand the plan himself. The communication officer reported that all human vessels were in position and ready for whatever was coming next. Park looked at the tactical display showing 12 tiny human ships facing 2,000 alien warships. By every law of military strategy, this battle was already over before it began. But Admiral Tae-Young Shin had assured Park that conventional strategy would not determine the outcome of this fight. Humanity was about to demonstrate something that had never been attempted in the history of galactic warfare. The aliens were confident in their overwhelming superiority, but they did not understand what they were really facing. On Earth, President Lee addressed the planet from his underground command bunker. Billions of people watched on every available screen as their leader spoke calmly about humanity's finest hour. He did not mention surrender or evacuation plans. Instead, he talked about courage, innovation, and the unbreakable human spirit. Lee's words confused the alien intelligence officers who were monitoring human communications. They expected panic and despair from a species facing certain extinction. Instead, they heard speeches about hope and determination that made no logical sense given the military situation. The president stood before cameras that broadcast his message to every human world and colony. Behind him, displays showed the approaching alien fleet, but his voice remained steady and confident. He spoke as if humanity had already won a victory that the rest of the galaxy could not yet see. Dr. Yang stood in his secret control room surrounded by displays showing quantum field strength across multiple light years of space. His team of 30 engineers monitored systems that had never been tested at full power. Every person in the room understood they were about to make history. Dr. Yujin Han reported that all quantum field generators were ready for activation. The network spanned from Mercury to the outer planets with additional installations in the Alpha Centauri and Proxima systems. The scope of the project was beyond anything any species had ever attempted. Yang's hands hovered over the master control console. 3 years of secret work had led to this moment, when humanity's survival would be decided by technology that most people considered impossible. The quantum field network was ready to demonstrate what human ingenuity could accomplish when facing extinction. The Vorthak fleet crossed into the outer solar system, passing through what appeared to be empty space. Their sensors detected no unusual energy readings, no hidden defensive installations, no sign of human resistance beyond the pathetic handful of ships scattered ineffectively throughout the system. Admiral Kriegstall smiled with satisfaction as his forces took up positions for the final assault. The humans had made this easy by refusing to concentrate their forces for a proper defense. His ships could destroy the scattered human vessels one by one before moving on to bombard the planets. The alien commander had conquered 47 different species using identical tactics, overwhelming force applied systematically until all resistance collapsed. The humans would be no different from all the others who had fallen before the might of the Vorthak Empire. Lieutenant Hai Jin Cho's instruments at Mars Station Alpha suddenly exploded with readings he could not understand. Every sensor detected massive energy buildup from sources that should not exist. The displays showed impossible quantum signatures that violated everything he had learned about physics. Major Nam ordered immediate evacuation of the station, but Cho realized they were safer staying exactly where they were. Something incredible was about to happen, and Mars Station was positioned to witness humanity's greatest moment. The energy readings suggested that space itself was about to change in ways no one could predict. The young lieutenant watched his instruments with growing excitement as power levels continued to climb. Whatever the humans had been secretly building was about to activate. The energy signatures were unlike anything he had ever seen, but they felt somehow familiar and reassuring. Captain So-Young Kim monitored the quantum field fluctuations from her position near Jupiter. Her research station had been modified with special sensors that could detect the subtle changes in space-time that preceded field activation. The readings showed that Dr. Yang's network was ready to demonstrate its full power. Kim had worked with Yang's team for 3 years, helping to develop the theoretical framework for quantum field manipulation. She understood the physics involved, better than most people. But even she was amazed by the scope of what they had accomplished. The network could affect the movement of entire fleets across multiple star systems. The captain opened a secure channel to Earth Command and reported that all installations were showing green status lights. The quantum field generators were operating within normal parameters and ready for full power activation. Humanity's secret weapon was prepared to change the course of galactic history. On the Vorthak flagship, sensors detected the first hints that something unusual was happening in the space around the human fleet. The readings were subtle and easily dismissed as natural phenomena caused by solar radiation or magnetic field fluctuations. The aliens had no experience with quantum field manipulation technology. Admiral Krixtal ignored the minor sensor anomalies and focused on coordinating his fleet's final approach. His ships moved into perfect formation for the systematic destruction of human civilization. Every captain knew their role in the coming battle, and every warrior prepared for easy victory against primitive opponents. The alien commander had studied the intelligence reports about human military capabilities dozens of times. Their weapons were inadequate, their ships were poorly designed, and their tactics were predictable. This would be the shortest planetary conquest in Vorthak history. Dr. Yang took a deep breath and prepared to press the activation button that would change everything. Around him, his team monitored hundreds of displays showing the status of quantum field generators across light years of space. Every system was ready and waiting for the signal that would demonstrate humanity's greatest achievement. Yang thought about his daughter and the billions of other humans whose lives depended on the technology he had developed in secret. 3 years of impossible work had led to this moment when everything would be decided. Either the quantum field network would save his species, or they would all die knowing they had tried something that had never been attempted before. The moment of truth had arrived. In seconds, the galaxy would discover that humanity had developed weapons that could manipulate the basic structure of reality itself. Dr. Yang pressed the single red button on his control console and the universe changed forever. Across the solar system, hidden quantum field generators activated simultaneously with power levels that defied every known law of physics. The Vorthak fleet suddenly found themselves trapped in pockets of altered space-time, where normal rules no longer applied. The alien ships discovered their weapons would not fire. Energy refused to flow through their plasma cannons and missile launchers remained sealed shut. Their engines could not generate thrust as the quantum fields disrupted the fundamental forces that powered their technology. 2,000 mighty warships became helpless metal sculptures floating in the void. Admiral Krixtal screamed orders at his crew, but nothing responded to their commands. The ship's artificial intelligence reported system failures throughout the vessel, but could not identify the cause. Weapons engineering, propulsion, and communications all showed green status lights, yet none of them would function properly. The alien commander had conquered 47 worlds during his long career. He had faced desperate enemies who used every possible tactic to resist the Vorthak Empire, but he had never encountered anything like this complete technological failure that seemed to violate the basic laws of science. His bridge officers ran frantic diagnostics, searching for the source of their problems. The quantum field effects were invisible to their sensors, which had never been designed to detect manipulated space-time. They could not understand how the primitive humans had somehow disabled their entire fleet without firing a single shot. Captain Park watched in amazement as enemy vessels simply froze in place around his position. The quantum fields that Dr. Yang had created locked the alien ships in temporal stasis, unable to move, fight, or retreat. The massive Vorthak Armada that had seemed unstoppable moments before now hung motionless in space like insects trapped in. Amber Park's crew cheered as they realized what had happened. Somehow the brilliant scientists had found a way to neutralize the overwhelming enemy force without destroying them. Every alien ship remained intact with their crews alive inside, but completely powerless to continue their invasion. The captain opened communications to the rest of the human fleet. Admiral Shin confirmed that the quantum field network was operating perfectly. All 2,000 enemy vessels had been captured in temporal stasis fields that could hold them indefinitely. The impossible had been accomplished through human ingenuity and determination. On Harmony Station, the Galactic Council emergency session erupted in chaos as delegates watched the incredible scene unfolding in the Sol system. Ambassador Kim calmly stood at his podium, while alien representatives shouted questions and accusations in dozens of different languages. The massive display screens showed the Vorthak fleet frozen in space around human vessels that moved freely through the quantum fields. Council Speaker Zorthani demanded an immediate explanation for technology that seemed to violate everything they understood about physics and warfare. Kim began to speak in the ancient formal language of galactic diplomacy. He explained that humanity had developed quantum manipulation technology in secret over the past 3 years. The Vorthak fleet was not destroyed or damaged in any way. They were simply neutralized until their government agreed to negotiate peaceful terms. The alien delegates stared at the tactical displays in complete disbelief. The mighty Vorthak Empire that had conquered 300 worlds had been defeated by a species they considered primitive apes. The implications were staggering for every civilization in the galaxy. Dr. Yang opened a communication channel directly to the trapped alien flagship. Speaking in perfect Vorthak, he addressed Admiral Krikstal with calm politeness that contrasted sharply with the alien commander's desperate rage and confusion. The human scientist explained that his species had spent 3 years preparing for this invasion. Humanity had developed technology that could manipulate the quantum foam, underlying all matter and energy in the universe. The Vorthak were experiencing the practical application of theoretical physics that their own scientists had never imagined possible. Yang offered the aliens a simple choice. They could return to their empire with a message of peace and mutual respect, or they could remain frozen in space until their government learned to treat other species with dignity. The demonstration of power was intended to prevent future conflicts, not to destroy their civilization. Young warrior Veltar found himself unable to move aboard the invasion transport Deathbringer. His enhanced muscles refused to respond, and his weapons were frozen in his hands. The ship's artificial gravity still worked, but nothing else would obey his commands. Through the viewports, he could see human vessels moving normally while every Vorthak ship hung motionless in space. The warriors around him struggled helplessly against the invisible force that held them in place. Their confidence in Vorthak superiority had been shattered in an instant. Veltar had never experienced fear during his 7 previous conquests. He was genetically engineered for courage and trained from birth to face any enemy. But this situation was beyond his understanding. The humans had somehow turned reality itself into a weapon that made Vorthak technology useless. The ancient Watcher species convened an emergency council for the first time in 50,000 years. Elder Korvash focused his million-year-old mind on the quantum signatures emanating from human space. The energy patterns were impossible according to everything the Watchers knew about physics. The Watchers had experimented with quantum field manipulation millions of years ago during their own early development, but they had abandoned the technology as too dangerous for practical use. The forces involved could tear apart solar systems if not controlled with absolute precision. Korvash studied the human quantum network with growing amazement. The young species had not only discovered these ancient secrets, but had learned to use them safely on a massive scale. Their field generators created perfectly stable pockets of altered space-time without any of the catastrophic side effects that had terrified the Watchers. Lieutenant Cho at Mars Station Alpha recorded everything his instruments could detect about the quantum field activation. The energy readings were beyond anything he had imagined possible. Space itself was being reshaped according to human will, in a display of technological mastery that defied comprehension. The young officer realized he was witnessing the moment when humanity announced their arrival as a major power in galactic civilization. The species that everyone had dismissed as primitive had just demonstrated capabilities that surpassed even the ancient races who had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. Captain Kim received new orders from Earth Command to begin Phase 2 of the operation. Her research station near Jupiter activated additional quantum field generators that extended the network throughout the outer solar system. Now, every approach to human space was protected by invisible barriers that could trap any hostile fleet. The captain opened a channel to the Vorthak flagship and spoke directly to Admiral Krikstal. She explained that humanity desired peace with all species, but would defend themselves against any aggression. The quantum field technology would be shared with peaceful civilizations, but used against those who threatened innocent people. Dr. Yang monitored the quantum field network from his control room as power levels stabilized across the entire system. The generators were operating at only 15% of their maximum capability, but that was more than enough to maintain the stasis fields indefinitely. Humanity now had the ultimate defensive weapon. His daughter, Dr. Yunji Yang, reported that similar demonstrations were taking place around Alpha Centauri, where a smaller Vorthax scouting fleet had also been neutralized. The quantum network extended across multiple star